Hey everybody, it's Strict9 with Strict9 GP. Welcome back to another episode of my Out of the Park 21 playthrough with the Cubs. So that 2022 season is in the books. All the awards have been given out. I'd like to go through those this episode and get started in free agency in the off season. All in all, I'm pretty happy with what we did for this first season. Winning the division. We made it further in the playoffs than I thought we would. Took the Dodgers up to the seventh game in the National League Championship Series. It was just really Syndergaard was the difference, I think. Had we had this caliber of a pitcher in that rotation, I think we may have pulled it off. It's hard to say, I know, but he would have really helped the team. We outperformed based on where we were, so all in all, pretty good. And I've been thinking since that last episode, maybe give this one more season to see what we can do. My goal was just to see, take over a team that needed a rebuild, had some budget issues, which the Cubs did coming into the 2020 season, and to see what kind of turnaround I can make and how quick I can make it. I think, being able to win the division and getting that far in the playoffs in just a few seasons, I think I met my goal. I just like to give it one more chance or one more year and see if we can go a little bit further next year. But it's hard to repeat unless you've just really got a true dynasty, and we don't. I mean, outside of just a few players, Syndergaard included, we don't really have those Hall of Fame, superstar caliber players at too many positions on this team. Outside of Syndergaard, you might even make the argument we don't have any of those kind of players on this team. But regardless, I'm happy with what we did. I want to look at a few things outside of the awards this year, and then we'll get moving into free agency a little bit. I do like keeping up with the owner goals, so we'll take a look at that. For next year, he just wants us to achieve a winning record, upgrade at shortstop. Rojas was serviceable, but he was injured some. He wasn't a long-term solution. I'm pretty sure about that. He wanted me to sign Inciarte to an extension. We did that last episode. He came in at a low expectation on the salary. Worst case scenario, this guy can play a few positions in the outfield. He could be a bench player if we get somebody better at center, so that'd be fine. We need to increase the attendance. It's been lagging, even though I think our loyalty and fan interest is pretty good, but for some reason we're just not getting the attendance that we need. Although 38,000 a game, that's pretty good for the Cubs. We still got really a lot of money to play with, mostly for extensions, upcoming free agents in the next year. Segura is going to be gone after this year. I did pull the trigger on him. He's, I think, the best option we're going to find at third for one more year. He gave us a lot of innings this year, which I like. Production was pretty good, just under 4.4 wins above replacement. Good defender. Comes in fairly high, considering, I guess, the kind of offensive player he is, but I'm fine with that. And then Darvish will be off the payroll. Hayward, I think it's time to eat his contract. He gives you really not much of anything, and I was going to do that anyway, but I think I'm just going to go ahead and do that right now. So that eats into the player expenses a little bit, but we needed to clear up his roster spot, so I'm okay with that. And you look at the salaries going into next year. Syndergaard and Rizzo are pretty tough. Caratini I signed to a pretty big contract. He was an all-star this year and really got some MVP voting too. You'll see when we take a look at that. But there's a team option on him after the 2023 season. A couple team options at a pretty high price, just under $20 million. So if he doesn't really have a great season next year, he can go off the books. That'll save us some money. This team is set up a lot better, I think, going forward than they were when I picked them up. They were just up against the budget that the owner set. I think we had maybe $3 or $4 million to play with as soon as we started Out of the Park 21 in that 2020 season. So right now we've got some room really for the next 3-4 years and beyond. So I think if we can just get a better minor league system going, this team can really start building a perennial playoff contender. But let's go ahead, like I said, let's start off looking at the awards. I always like to kind of look at all of the awards and see where I have any players who came in the voting. So we start out with Gold Gloves, and that's going to be American League. Francisco Lindor, 29 years old in this playthrough. He's doing really well. He won at short. Aaron Judge, good defender at right. He won for the Yankees, although his offense is just getting worse and worse. He signed through 2025 at $20 million a year. I really don't foresee him sticking out that long, to be honest. It's hard to really see paying a guy that much, even though he gives you some good defense. Depends on the amount of play he gets. I mean, he's going to give you 30 to 40 plus home runs a year at best. The last 3 seasons, 2020 through 2022, look at that. Well over 200 strikeouts, average 262 in 2021. He hasn't hit above 227, so he's a gamble at that money. And then Matt Chapman, another great defensive third baseman, who's almost the same deal. You're not going to get much production from him, haven't anyway in this playthrough. In Out of the Park 21, I would say he'll probably be a better offensive player in Major League Baseball than he will here. But good defender. I see him perennially in the Gold Glove Awards on this one, and also that Phillies playthrough, which I'm up to almost 10 seasons ahead. I mean, the 2033 season on that one. We didn't have any Gold Gloves in the National League from our team. Some of the usual players you'd expect, Arenado, Pash, I think I'm saying that right, but he's a young player for the Braves who's also, he was a rookie in this 2020 season. Great defender. He's had a great career in the other Phillies playthrough I'm doing. Alec Bohm, who I mentioned, if you're playing the Phillies, this guy turns out to be a great player. I think if you start off in that 2020 season, get ready to promote him pretty quick. This was his rookie season. I think he's a good bet to win Rookie of the Year. Well, he didn't. Sorry, he didn't win Rookie of the Year. Good defender, great offensive player. In my Phillies playthrough, he finished with over 450 home runs, second all-time on the Phillies. Just a great power producer his whole career. But that's it. For Andrelton Simmons, I guess I'll call him out. He's just rated about as well as any defender in this version of Out of the Park 21. He's probably going to win this as long as he keeps playing. I mean, look at that, 80 on a 20 to 80 scale, and I believe it topped out. You can't get higher than 80. He's, except for the air rating, he's maxed out at all of them. He's a great defender. And then in relievers, American League went to Taylor Rogers for the Twins. Pretty close voting, but he led the league in saves with 40. And then on the National League, it went to Will Smith for Atlanta. He led the league in saves, but had just a great year. 1.48 ERA, 3.0 wins above replacement, .82 on the WHIP. That's really good for a reliever. But once again, no Cubs showed up there. Silver Slugger, American League. Tristan Casas, who I've seen with Boston, he did not look good in that Phillies playthrough I've got, but he's one of those guys. I've seen some other YouTubers have some good luck with him at Boston. He had a great season this year, 47 home runs, 5.4 wins above replacement. Trout won at center. Jordan Alvarez, 53 home runs to lead the American League. He's another one who's just going to have a great career in Out of the Park 21. Then we go to the Rookies of the Year. American League went to Evan White, first baseman at Baltimore, and he's a true rookie. This is his first look at the major leagues. Showed some pretty decent power. He's a great defensive first baseman. He won it. Won the Gold Glove at first in his rookie year. Vidal Brujan, if I'm saying that right, Lewin Diaz. These are some guys you might be familiar with. Got some votes there. Cal Raleigh. I don't remember him doing too much in that Phillies playthrough. On the National League side, we finally got some votes here. Brennan Davis finished third in the voting. He was really good offensively. A 3-star player at 23 years old. He's got some room to develop. He's a good defender at the corners, good speed and power and contact. I'm hoping that he just keeps developing. I've said it multiple times in these playthroughs. He has played well everywhere he's been. He's never looked overmatched. He's never looked like he doesn't belong at any level you put him in, and that included the national or the the MLB this year. So he had a great year. But the rookie went to Gavin Sheets, who really is rated amazingly high for the Mets, and he had a great season, 7 wins above replacement. He's another one who's might be hit or miss in Out of the Park 21 because he didn't really do too well in that Phillies playthrough. I think he kind of burned out after a few years. Managers of the year went to Francona from Cleveland, and then Roberts for Los Angeles. That's the second time he's won it in this playthrough. Look at his record. His win-loss record is amazing career. And then Cy Young Award went to Tyler Glasnow in the American League. He led the league in wins, had 237 strikeouts, pretty good. But there were several other players that could have got this award, in my opinion. Glasnow was a unanimous choice, but Manning looked pretty decent. He had more strikeouts, a better wins above replacement. I think Justin Dunn was another one who I gave quite a bit of votes to. He had 16 wins, tied for the league there. A lot of guys you could really vote for in this American League. McCullers led in wins above replacement. Cole led in strikeouts. 4th year in a row he's done that. In the National League, it went to Mike Soroka, unanimous. He had the best year of any pitcher in this playthrough. Led in wins at 20, a 2.49 ERA, 9 wins of a replacement. That was tops in all of baseball. Great year for him. He's a guy who I don't know if, well, the Atlanta did sign him pretty long term, but he's a guy that at 27, in that 2027 season, he'll still be 30 years old. So if he doesn't opt out early for more money, he's a guy who might be a free agent relatively early in his career. So if you're playing Out of the Park 21, keep an eye on him because he's going to be more than likely around for a while. Syndergaard did get second. No other Cubs, I don't think. The Dodgers had a few. Graterol, who we went up against in the National League Championship Series, he had a pretty decent year, but he might be an injury risk. Dakota Hudson finished third. Then MVP went to Yordan Alvarez in the American League, led in home runs, RBIs, a good slugger. I don't know if he'll have a playthrough in this Cubs one like he will in the Phillies one. In the Phillies one, he's already over 7 home runs, or 700 home runs for his career. And I finished up a season this week. I think it was the 2032 season that I just finished. And into the 2033 season, both Cody Bellinger, and Mike Trout have passed Barry Bonds for the all-time home run record. And Bellinger is closing in on 800, and I think he's almost guaranteed to get 800. That's amazing to me. But it's I think you'll probably see that as you're playing through these seasons. If you're using the default settings, you're going to see a lot of home runs. I can't even tell you how many players finished above 600 home runs for their career in that other playthrough with the Phillies. Maybe not a big surprise, but gosh, who's the third baseman for, well, we'll probably see it right here in the National League's award voting. Acuna, by the way, got the National League MVP in a close one. He led in wins above replacement at 9.3. 54 stolen bases, a great all-around player. Bellinger was second. Arenado was the guy I was trying to think of. He finished with over 700 home runs in that Phillies playthrough. Just amazing. But we did get some votes here, like I said, for Caratini. And I think Syndergaard got some votes too. So could have been better, could have been worse. I would much rather take on or get the wins than the individual awards. But it is kind of cool to see that pop up every once in a while. Looking at arbitration next, I may have messed up because I know I was talking about Ian Happ, how I didn't know if I wanted to keep him around, and maybe Dickerson would have been a better signing. But at the end of the day, I'm hoping he comes off his injuries okay. It's still, his salary in arbitration was just $3.8 million. So he's had 2 pretty tough years, though. I don't know what the future looks like for him with his team, but I'm going to give him 1 more year. I also got Rasmussen and Austin Adams pretty low in the bullpen. They both had really good years. And then Horner also had a standout year, really, at second. I think he's going to settle into that role on this team for a while. I think I've got him for a few more years in arbitration, so that's going to be good. And then that sets us up for free agency. And I think I don't want to get too much money out there on pitching, but I think that's what I have to do. So let's just take a look at this team, where we stand. And we're at, what is it? So 25 players that we need to go. And I usually go with 12 pitchers and then 13 position players. Banda's set. He's going to be here for another 3 years at a very low salary. I don't think despite the great year he had, he's not really a number 2 starter yet. But I think he's going to really match up well with Syndergaard. And Honeywell, I can probably put him in that 5th spot and be okay with him. I think his ratings, except for movement, which means he's going to give up a lot of home runs, I think he's serviceable. He's got good stamina. He's got 5 solid pitches. He's going to be in the rotation somewhere. Corey Abbott is a mystery to me. This guy, for some reason, I don't know if it's because he's got 4 good pitches and a good stamina. I'm really not sure what does it for him, but for the most part, he's decent, considering his ratings. I don't know if I need him in that rotation, but he could probably go in a pinch. But that's a shaky starting rotation, even with Syndergaard in the mix, which I'm going to go ahead to. I think I can do this. Put Syndergaard in there and Darvish just to get a look at how they stack up ratings wise. So Darvish is there for 1 more year, but he's 6-7 months away. He's not going to be ready for the start of the season. He may be somebody who's all but done. I mean, I could put him in like a long reliever situation, but he's not really set up to do that too well. So he's somebody just like I had to do with Hayward. I may just have to drop him and eat that $18 million. But Syndergaard, I hope, will be ready. And if not close to his ratings, hopefully they won't take a big dive. This is, I mentioned when this injury happened, it's so frustrating because look at his history in this playthrough anyway. Since 2020, he's hardly had any injuries. And now, when we need him the most, he's out for a few months. But with that kind of stamina that he's had and durability, I'm hoping that his ratings will stay the same. I think we can go with Adams again at closer. He really turned it around the second half of the year. If he doesn't, then maybe I can start looking at Ibarra to throw in there. Elledge looks good as well. So bullpen I'm not too worried about. I'm not too worried about Caratini and Rizzo. They look pretty good. Horner's got a lock on it. Segura's got a lock on his position. Clement is a guy who I re-signed mainly as a bench player because he can play 3 infield positions, the middle infield, just not too great at third, but he could still play it. I think he's a guy who I'm happy to have on the bench, and he's actually he's not even ready for arbitration yet, so he's good. But if somebody's out there that's a little bit better upgrade than Rojas, I'll take it on. Even though I've signed him for 3 seasons, that third one is a vesting option. It's not at $6.5 million with their budget. It wouldn't be too big of a hit. So the big question really is going to be, what do I do with the offense? I mean, or the outfield. I really think Brennan Davis is going to be good to come back and start next year. I like Hazley in left more than I like him in center, and I think he can even start for the most part. So that would put Inciarte really in center, and then Barrera and Happ backing up. But I think when Happ gets off that injured list, I'm going to try to trade him away. I don't know if that's a great move. We've got Roederer. We don't have too much coming up in the outfield in the minors, and at AAA, this is, he has never played above AA, but he's another one of those almost like Davis in the sense that since his rookie level seasons, he's played well every level that he's been on, and he went from high A to AA last year and played well at both. I mean, he finished with a 5+ wins above replacement. He was an all-star selection in the Midwest League 2021. So he's got some future, I think. He just needs to improve his contact. He's going to be one of those kind of guys you can put maybe in a leadoff spot or low down in the lineup with his speed, and he can give you some pretty modest production. But let's go ahead and take a look at what we've got free agency wise. And the first thing I'm going to look at is starters, and take a look at the pitching ratings. I'm going to look at somebody who's still fairly young, somebody like Barrios. He's had some pretty decent years. I like, which is, of course, this is what I liked about Syndergaard. I like the amount of starts and innings he gives you year to year. I don't like his movement, though. That's mid-20s and higher on home runs every year. And really, OSA doesn't like him as well. So I don't know if I would want to gamble on him. Clevenger, however, you take out his control. I mean, he had a pretty rough 2021. But he's got 4 strong pitches, rated the same really with MyScout and OSA. He's a mid-rotation starter for MyScout. He's second or above starter from OSA. He's a good pick. Severino is not a starter, and I'll tell you why. It's that the formula I always use for starters, they've got to have 3 pitches rated green or above. And that's, if they don't have that, odds are they're not really set up to be a starter. I wonder if MyScout would even say so. He's got some platoon issues. He says he could be a mid-rotation starter. His platoon issues aren't really that bad against lefties. He's really good against righties, but OSA has him rated a little bit lower. And I think what OSA is probably going to be, scouting-wise, yeah, they're saying the same thing. So he's mid-rotation starter, but he's going to give you trouble against lefties. And he's not really, I guess at that money, $9.5 million wouldn't be too bad. But he's not going to give you the years he gave you in 2017 and 2018 in this playthrough. So that kind of does it. I mean, now you're getting to 3 stars with Sonny Gray, Carlos Martinez. Carlos Martinez, his problem is stamina. He's not going to give you a lot of wins because he doesn't go deep in games. So I'm not going to really risk what is that, $10 million or more for him. So it's going to be Barrios or Clevenger. And right now, Clevenger's wanting more money, but Barrios, you take away the home runs and you take away 2021, I think Barrios is really a better gamble. I mean, he's been sub 4 ERA or right around 4 in what is I forget what the F stands for, but in his FIP, we'll just say it that way. And he's really coming off a good year, 376 in that. So that's a pretty good measurement, I think, if you compare it to, Clevenger's even better, actually. 379. Again, you take away 2021 from him, he's had a better career at that. But he's almost 32. And it scares me with Clevenger how many years he's going to want. Looks like he's going to want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Barrios is going to want... He's going to want 7. And the last one an option year. So that's a lot of money. But it's generous in the sense that, look at those first 3 years, 14, 16, 18. It gradually builds up to 20. Those decisions. It's really tough. I mean, gosh, if you look at those individual ratings for him, I don't see a whole lot that's all that special. In terms of, I think I'm gonna offer him this contract, and I'm gonna see if he will do 6 years at that money. Same contract, give him the player option for that last year, and he will at least, he calls it a decent option. We'll see if that's going to turn into a decent option. Now, the other question is, do I want to look at some of these 3 stars? Because I need that kind of depth. That's how far back we are. Sonny Gray, I was really burned by him in even really after the trade and into the playoffs. He did give me, if I look at his what he did in the postseason for us, it really wasn't that bad. I know I'm saying like he was terrible, but he had one bad game that he lost, and he had 2 really big outings for us, and one I think in against the Braves in the division series, we wouldn't have moved any further if he hadn't pitched the way he did. So which one? Yeah, it was that 8 1/3 shutout innings that he gave us in that win. It was a 1-0 win at that. So he was pretty decent in the playoffs. I can't really complain about it. And at 6.25, let me see if he would go. Oh man, he's wanting a long-term contract, and more than likely he's going to get somebody to in this. The AI is going to probably go that far with him, but I don't really have. I've got Clark here, who's working his way up. He may eventually make it to the majors, but he's about it until I get to low A, and this is a guy who's a long way away, a 3rd-round pick. He's a long way away from developing. And then I hate to even mention this one, but Patterson is still sticking around in AAA, Iowa. He needs to improve his control. I don't think he's going to do it, and he's an anomaly because he's a lefty pitcher and he's bad against left-handed batters, for what it's worth, rated wise. So let's say I do get Barrios. So I'd have Syndergaard, Banda, Honeywell, and Barrios, and then Abbott, maybe Patterson, maybe Darvish to fill out that 5th spot. I'll at least start out the free agents period with that kind of goal anyway. So now we've only got 37 million. So let's look at short. We're not going to probably get a major player there. There's not really any major players available. The only thing we have available here are, suspect batters with good defense. I think that's what I've got in Rojas. I know Peraza would probably be a great guy to have as a utility player. He wants to be in the starting lineup. I don't think he's worth it. Of the two, I think Iglesias is a better player, but he's also gonna want to start at short. What would I do with Rojas at that point with his salary? So I'm not really gonna tackle that one, but I want to look at outfielders here. Man, this is a weak free agent season. I mean, outfielders, you got a few 3-star players and they're suspect, and that's it. I mean, Benintendi, he's going to want a lot of money, $26 million. He's coming off a great year. He's rated pretty well personality-wise. I just do not want to give him that much money. That's way too much for a 3-star. Azuna would be a good left fielder at 10.5. But problem I think you'd find with him, he wants a long term. I wouldn't give him probably more than 2 or 3 years. Almora's back around. He's an interesting. He's interesting to me now because I traded him away, and who did I trade him for? Ernie Clement. Yeah, so I traded him for Ernie Clement just because I didn't think that he was good enough to start. So, and now we got Dickerson again, and he's not wanting much. I like what he brings to the table, especially against right-handed batters, but even against lefties. I'm going to go ahead and offer him. He'll take a 1.3. That's just not much. So that would give me some freedom if I'm able to trade away Hap. So that's pretty good. And one other thing I'm going to do, because relievers are usually fairly cheap, I'm going to see if I can just pick up another reliever now. A couple guys here. Chapman's injured, but Velasquez, he wants to be a closer. Is he worth? He's pretty good. Great against lefties. In terms of the lefties I don't have anybody in that bullpen, any lefties. And Adams, he's probably wanting to be the closer. But man, I would not be too hesitant to do that. He's had some great years with Pittsburgh and then Oakland. I meant to look at relievers. I was kind of looking for somebody like a middle relief or setup, but I'm going to see if he will, if he'll give me pretty good terms on a contract. I might. Oh yeah, that's really worth it. $6.5 million for 2 years. All right, so those are the 3 offers I'm going to look at. I'm going to take a pause. I'm going to sim ahead. Let me see what's next. Hall of Fame voting's coming up. Let me go ahead, pause, sim to the Hall of Fame voting, see how the response is to these offers. All right, so nothing really happened too much from those offers, except that Barrios came back, said that he still favors our offer, but good news from Syndergaard, he's recovering well. He's going to be off the injured list quicker than I thought, so that's good news to hear from him. I'm going to go ahead and look at the Hall of Fame voting. I don't know if you guys pay much attention to that. I always like to kind of look at it. And and see who's coming on for first year and see what kind of voting we get. So right away, I'm going to vote for Abreu. I know if you followed my previous playthroughs, I just think this guy had a great career for the decade, for the time that he played, the 2000s primarily. He was a great on-base percentage guy. He had decent power and speed. 400 steals for his career, 1,453 runs. I think, and a 60-plus wins above replacement. That's not a big number for a lot of these guys, we're seeing now that come into the league. But I think he had one heck of a run with Philadelphia and was a valuable player with New York and even the Angels there for a couple years. I think he's worth getting some votes. Carlos Beltran, yeah, he's the same way. He's a good player. This is his first year for eligibility. Bronson Arroyo, I like the guy. He was a pretty gutsy player, it seems like, but didn't have the numbers. Same with Blanton. Matt Cain kind of burned out early. Had some good years early in his career, but didn't turn it into much. Dickey had that one awesome Cy Young Award winning season, 20 wins for the Mets. Just happened too late in his career, unfortunately. We got Jacob Ellsbury, injured too much. Prince Fielder, same way. I think he got injured a little bit too much late in his career. Was a great player, though, to start. Julio Franco. Todd Helton, his offensive numbers are hard to beat, but, he's got that Colorado stigma. I'm going to vote for him here, though, because I don't think there are not going to be too many options, I think. Howard, great Philly player, was just instrumental for sure in their run where they went to back-to-back World Series, won one. I think it was either 2008 or 2009 when they won it. But career-wise, numbers not Hall of Fame worthy. Jeff Kent, I think you can make a good argument for being a Hall of Famer. I don't know why he's showing up in the voting unless he's just, this is his last year for voting. He's not going to get elected by this AI or probably in real life, but he had another guy. When you look at the generation of players, I think his personality may have not been that great, but he really was a great player. Lackey, he was a pretty good player as well, was in a lot of playoff teams, World Series teams throughout his career. Got Joe Nathan, good closer, 377 saves. He never won the Reliever of the Year award, though. That's kind of odd. So not much here that's standing out. I know Pettit has some controversy around him, but he's another one that I always vote for. 256 wins and 70 wins above replacement, 2,400 plus strikeouts. It's hard to argue against that, really. I also, from a closer's perspective, I always go with K-Rod here, Francisco Rodriguez. 62 saves, I think it's still the record. You can correct me that if I'm wrong in the comments. 437 saves for his career, probably finished top 5 maybe career as a closer. I think he was one of the better closers ever, really, certainly of his generation. Scott Rowland was a good player. You can also make the argument for him when you consider his defense and production at the heart of his career. Gary Sheffield, I always vote for him. He's another one who's controversial, but again, those are good numbers. I'm not so sure on what the controversy is with him in terms of anything outside of on the field. So I always vote for him. I vote for Jimmy Rollins because I'm a Phillies fan, and he was a great player at a tough position. And then after that, man, that's about it. Omar Vizquel is one who's not going to get the votes he needs, but he was a great defensive shortstop, kind of like an Ozzie Smith, although not as good as Ozzie Smith. Finished with 2,800 hits for his career. That's hard to beat, really. well, I mean, you could beat it, but for the type of player that he was, to play long enough and be productive enough to get to that level of hits and runs, even 1,445 runs, 400 steals, not bad, even offensively, but I just don't think he's Hall of Fame worthy. Billy Wagner is another one you could make. You might even argue that he's a better closer than K-Rod, but I'm just going to stick with one closer this time around, and that's it. Not going to meet the full 10 on the ballot, but gives us a few to look at. So we did get Barrios, and that was, I think, we're going to lose just a third-round draft pick, not too bad. Fan reaction increased a little bit. I hope I don't regret this. Again, OSA doesn't have him as high. My scout, he's 3.5, so that puts him certainly on this rotation. He's a second, number 2 starter. And I don't think, as this plays out, I think that's probably going to turn out to be a value for this free agent class. Like Stroman, for instance, he got 6 years, $117 million. So he got a better contract than Barrios, and maybe even a longer term. Not 6 years, but more money, and he's not the player outside of maybe stamina. I don't think he's the pitcher that Barrios is. So I'm happy with that. So 2 years in a row, we've gotten a really good starting pitcher in free agency. And right away, I mean, I'm putting him, so I'm going to put Noah Syndergaard, who's healthy almost. He's going to be in that first spot. Barrios comes in that second spot. Then we got Banda, Honeywell. That's manageable. And then if we get, was it Rojas I was going for? I can't remember who I was going for. In, well, just look at it right now. Vasquez, sorry. Pitching is going to look, I think, in good shape next year. So let's go ahead, go up to the winter meetings. I've got it set up right now that I don't think I can trade injured players. I think I turned that setting off. But let me look at some news here, and then we'll see what situation we're in with Hap. So David Price still getting some contracts, $15.8 million. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. Even though it's just a couple seasons with one vesting. Clevenger, 4 years, $73 million. So Angels got a steal right there. If I knew I could have gotten 4 years at that money, $18.4 million, yeah, I would have probably gone Clevenger. But I just didn't want to get into too much negotiations back and forth between those two. Dickerson's, he's liking our offer, so is Vasquez. We got a trade proposal here from Miami. Richard Rodriguez, I can already see that's not going to happen. There's not much upside in that one. Sano signs with the Mets. His ratings for contact are just too low. He's going to give you a lot of strikeouts, and home runs are going to be there, but that's it. Josh Bell, good contract for him. Multi-year, gosh, almost $20 million a year. What is that? 7 years, $135 million. That seems to be a little bit high. And then the Angels, man, they're putting some money out there. They got Benintendi. Looks like 7 years, $159 million. So well over 20 for him. And 7 years, that's asking a lot. That really is. I just don't foresee them getting the value out of that one. I may be wrong. If he comes back and has, I mean, in this playthrough, 2022 was his best season. So maybe he's now just really getting into his productive years. It might be a good bet, but I would not have, I don't think I would have been able to do that one. So now I want to look at injuries. Hap, one more week. I mean, I can try trading him, but I don't think, while he's showing, nobody's going to offer. So let me go ahead and sim a little bit further ahead, and we did get Vasquez. So good It's going to give us a dilemma, I think, on the closer, but not too much of a one. Honestly, I will take the heat if Austin Adams, for instance, if he doesn't perform in a setup role, I'll take the heat from him. We got another trade proposal, but it's Danny Duffy. Gosh, they're wanting a lot for Danny Duffy. That's way upside down. And some trades there, but I didn't see any more big free agent signings. So the winter meetings are over. We didn't hardly get any trade offers. So now we're up to the Rule 5 draft. And I want to see, is Hap still injured? Yeah, he's still injured. 3 more days. So let's take a look at the draft pool and see what we got. On the pitcher side, let's look at all pitchers and pitching ratings. I'm seeing some good closer types up here at the top. Christopher Cruz, though, he's 19 years old. He's never played above high A or single A. And that looks to be his potential. I don't want his potential, I want his ratings. All right, so yeah, not much to pick up there. Nick Springle, I've seen him around, maybe in that Phillies playthrough. He's got a little bit of upside, but not much. I don't see anybody here who's going to give us enough help to take up that roster spot. And then in the batter side, if there's maybe a decent outfielder, might take a look at that. Scott Hurst can play center and right, coming off a decent year in AAA, but I don't think he's going to give you too much. I think I'd probably rather pick up somebody in free agency. And then Newton, a good defensive third baseman, but he has yet to play above AA, so there's not going to be anybody here I'm going to take on. And what I want to do, though, is I'm going to have to make sure that we don't have anybody showing up. So let me go ahead, pause it real quick. I'm going to run through the pool here, make sure the Cubs don't lose anybody, and I'll be right back. Okay, so it was an uneventful Rule 5 draft, to say the least. Only one player was drafted. I usually see at least 10 or more, and I've always been pretty active with the Rule 5 draft. I've had a few teams throughout my playthroughs with Out of the Park Baseball where, man, I picked up some future stars from the Rule 5, but not this year. And luckily we didn't lose anybody. I did have to put a few guys in Iowa on the secondary 40-man roster to protect them, but they were guys that I was probably going to take a look at in spring training anyway, so I'm not too upset there. But last thing I'm going to do this episode, I'm going to see if Ian Happ will generate any trade offers now that he's off of the injured list. And he is a popular player, so I would take a hit, I'm pretty sure, if I don't trade. I guess I would need to trade for somebody who's going to have a pretty good popularity coming back. But a few things that I'm kind of looking at as I'm thinking about this. Another starter, I would go for another 3-star or above starting pitcher who's got a decent contract. I would also look at shortstops and outfielders, either starters or bench outfielders who give me good ratings. So let's go ahead and take a look. The first thing off the bat, Madison Bumgarner, who has a pretty high contract still with Arizona. He's not going to be worth it. He's rated 3 stars, though. Kevin Ginkel, 3-star closer, who doesn't look too good. Marte, he is really losing his ratings in this playthrough at this point. He would be a gamble to trade for. Here's a 3-star Patrick Weigel. No, he could start potentially, but he's got some really suspect ratings there at control and movement. But you see, though, this is how the AI is valuing Hap right now. I don't think, even though 3.5 stars potential and overall, I don't think he's going to get that kind of interest back, unfortunately. Oh man, so I may just have to look at a prospect here, like Langhorne. He's not that great, but might not be a situation where I get a starter. That's going to be really worth it. So I'm set, really, I think, at catcher. Tim Anderson, he's a poor defender. He's not going to be a good option. Kyle Schwarber, I could take him back. Boy, he would really frustrate me. Aquino, after that rookie season, he really quieted down in this playthrough. He was almost ineffective after 2020 and beyond. He still, I guess, depends on the depth you have, he could start, but I wouldn't really want to start him too much. Michael Lorenzen, he's usually a decent bullpen guy, but that's a pretty high, and he can also bat. He's got a good bat for a pitcher, but that's a high contract for him. Plesac, at one time I was looking at him, I think, in trades because he was rated a little bit better. You can see he's just 27, double digits in wins 3 years in a row, but that contract is generous, but I think he would be just so-so. I mean, the best you could get from him, I think, would be a fifth spot in rotation. Look at that FIP. I mean, it was above 5 a couple years, so I don't want to lose Hap for that. All right, now I'm scrolling down. This is interesting. Sierra. He's listed as third base, but he's really rated better at second. Some good upside. Just I don't think he's got enough upside. Mondesi from Kansas City. Don't think I would want to gamble with those ratings. Didi Gregorius. He's at the tail end of his career, I think, in this playthrough. Man, I'm not really getting a whole lot. I was hoping that I would get a little bit better than this. So far, though, I'm not liking what I'm seeing. Hunter McMahon, he's potentially a starter if he develops to those ratings, but he's currently listed as the 52nd on the prospect top 100, but I think I would just really lose out trading for him. Taylor Rogers is a good bullpen guy. He's wanting to be the closer. He was the reliever of the year this year. If I needed a closer, he would be a good pick. Davey Garcia, no. Man, I'm just not liking what I'm seeing. Clark Schmidt, potentially a starter. I don't like gambling too much though because you can't change his. I can't see how he's rated as a starting pitcher, and so these are his relief pitcher ratings. And a lot of times, if you played, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you change him over to starting pitcher, sometimes he becomes a 2-star instead of a 3-star. Right now, I mean, he's got 4 solid pitches, good stamina. Movement's a little suspect, but he's looked good in AAA 2 years in a row, or decent in AAA. He could potentially fit into that fifth spot in the rotation, but I think it'd be a gamble. Same with King. He's almost the same situation. Marcus Semien. His contract is just way too high for me to pull the plug. But, oh man, Manaea. The thing you're going to get with Manaea that's going to trouble you is he might turn into injury prone. He was when he started out in his career anyway. But that movement, I just don't think he's worth trading it away either. So I'm about to get to the bottom of what I can do here. Philadelphia. And Jesse Winker is on the Phillies. He's a better offensive player, I think, than Happ at this point. But defensively, he's suspect, and he's not going to hit as well against righties or lefties. You're going to have platoon issues with him. What's his contract with them like? Pretty high on the last 3 years. So I'm beginning to think I'm not going to get what I thought I was going to get for Happ. It's looking, unfortunately, pretty rough. Now here's a prospect who's low. He's a AAA now, but he hasn't played above AA. He would be probably another Happ based on those ratings. You got Conforto, no Mookie Betts. That is intriguing. Straight up, that's really intriguing. Oh, the contract's just too long. I couldn't go that long on him. He can make a huge difference, though, short term, without question. I mean, this guy looks pretty decent, 2.5 stars. Lewis Brinson. Man, I'm really disappointed that I'm not getting anything that really speaks to me here. I mean, Mazzara, he's limited defensively. So it looks like that's not going to be the option I thought it was going to be. So I guess I just got to hope that he has a better start to the season, and maybe he's somebody who I can trade away next year if I need to. I need to really get some value from him, though, at this point. Even though I'm not happy with his play the last 2 seasons, I got to get something more from him. So it looks like that may be how we go in next season with just those free agent signings. Hopefully Dickerson will come on to give us some depth. But I do think we improved enough to keep us in the mix for next year, depending on whether we play the same. But I think I don't see any real reason to think we won't. The biggest question I think coming to my mind now is going to be at shortstop. And I think we're just going to be set with Rojas for at least 1 more year. And I think I can do that as long as he stays healthy. But hopefully this episode, I haven't kept up with time. But hopefully it hasn't been too long. But that's going to do it for this one. I'll come back next year. Next episode, we'll be starting spring training. We'll run through spring training and get ready for the opening day and see if we can repeat and hopefully next year make the World Series. But as always, I appreciate the support, all the likes and comments I get from you guys, and I will see you next episode.